It's Sunday, December 6th, 2015, and this is the Product Mentor Talk. Today we're joined by one of our mentors, Jordan Bergtraum, VP Product Management at Service Channel, to lead a talk on users versus thought leaders. Allow me to briefly explain the format of today's talk. The people you see along the bottom of your screen here are mentors and mentees within the current session of the program. Mentors and mentees get paired up. It's all within the field of product management for a period of 6 months to really make better product people, better product decisions. And so what we have here are those mentors and mentees within the current session. So we're going to just quickly go around the room. When it comes to you, say whether or not you're a mentor or mentee, what your name is, a little bit about yourself, and I'm going to start with the person closest to me on my screen, and that is Sarah.
Hello, my name is Sarah Varkey. I'm a lead product manager at Sonic Bids and Backstage in Dumbo in Brooklyn, and I'm a former mentee. In this session, I'm a mentor.
Great. And Matteo.
Hi everybody, my name is Matteo. I'm a product manager at Collective Health in San Francisco, and my webcam stopped working. Sorry.
Lonnie.
Hi everyone, my name is Lonnie Rosenbaum. I'm a product manager at Booker, located in New York. I'm a mentee in this program. I've been doing product for a few years and looking forward to become a better product person.
Josh.
Hello, I'm a lead product manager at Credit Sesame, a fintech startup out in San Francisco, and I am mentored by yours truly here in this session.
All right, I guess Jordan's also AKA yours truly. Jordan?
Yeah.
So we know you're a mentor. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, I'm on. Oh, okay. I didn't realize it was my turn. I head product for a company called Service Channel. We are a B2B Saas organization that has a solution for large-scale retailers and restaurant chains in the facilities management space, which roughly means when things break in their locations, stores, restaurants, they use our platform to connect those locations with their contractors that they have relationships with to ensure that those things get fixed quickly and that they have full visibility as well as analytics around their spend and quality of service.
Great. And I am Jeremy Horn, aka the Product Guy, and I'll be moderating here today. And so what you should do is post your questions to the Q&A section of theproductmentor.com/live. As the questions come in, I'll be passing them along to Jordan, and so that we can answer those questions in fairly nearly real time throughout the talk. I'll be looking for good moments to jump in and pass the questions along. So again, go to theproductmentor.com/live and post your questions there, and I'll pass them off to Jordan. But with that said, let me hand it off to Jordan for his talk.
Fantastic. Thank you. I gave you guys a little bit of a background as to who I am already. I think that covers the basis for now. You'll learn more about my experience and things that are related to the topic at hand, which, by the way, is users versus thought leaders. And the point is, over my many years of doing product, I've noticed there is a distinct difference between the two, and understanding that there is a difference, and that the same person oftentimes isn't both, and in fact, oftentimes the same person can't be both. Found as great value in terms of standing up your advisory boards or any client user contact you might have. I've been leading product management teams for about 7 years and project management. I have now gotten myself out of that discipline by choice. I find that having to handle both distracts from the product management discipline. That project seems to always take precedence. That being said, I made an active decision that if I wanted to be a great product person, that I couldn't also be responsible for the project management as well. My industries, all over the map: education, manufacturing, pharma, legal, and now facilities management. And I've spent 10 years in the B2B SaaS space with an emphasis, because I think it is relevant to this talk, that it has been B2B and that it's not B2C, and that the content within this presentation is very B2B focused, and in some ways is much easier in a B2B environment than it is in a B2C environment, and I recognize that. But I do believe that even if you are in a B2C environment, there are little nuggets that you will be able to glean and take advantage of. I have great confidence. I've also twice been responsible for introducing product management to an organization, meaning they did not have formal product management. The reason they were bringing me in was to do exactly that. And I've been responsible for standing up what I refer to as advisory boards, which all that means to me is a collection of your users or clients. Let's just think of that way. People that your clients, potentially prospects, but typically people that are your clients, and leveraging them to help drive the direction of your product. And I've done that 3 times. So what can you expect out of this? A couple of things. Why is having a formal board useful? Of course. The challenges around that is it's not always easy, and sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't. Recommendations on how to handle those challenges. Right? It's one thing to point out the problems, a whole other ball of wax to learn how to deal with them. Let's dive right in. Why? Is it necessary? Is it necessary to have a successful product? Simply put, no. Because it's only one of many inputs you're going to have to your product. It's not the only one. It should never be used exclusively to be the only one. But it is, in my opinion, a very valuable one for a number of reasons. Is it worth the effort? Absolutely. Okay, maybe. It depends, is really the answer. I say that because you have to think to yourself, can I attract and maintain a membership? Meaning, can I get people to show up in the first place? And can I keep them coming to the table? Because obviously, if I put all the effort in, and there is effort, don't get me wrong, this does not happen for free. It can take up your time and even emotional energy to do this. Bringing people to the table is one thing. That's actually not the hard part. Believe it or not, the hard part is keeping them coming over and over and over. Just to give you a little glimpse into how I've typically done this, I usually meet with my advisory boards every 2 weeks, which is often, very often for most advisory boards. And most people are surprised that I do it that often and that I can keep people coming every 2 weeks for an hour and give me that much of their time. But I get value out of it doing it every 2 weeks. They seemingly do as well because they keep coming back. Also, can you attract members that have input you can use for retention? That's one question to ask yourself, right? If not, then it should raise a flag like, am I going to get value out of this? There's the one thing your current existing customers are going to be quite good at, theoretically, is helping you find things to do to your product to retain your existing customer base. Now, also, of course, can these people help you potentially sell more product? Now, there are 2 types of selling more product. One is selling a new idea to your existing client base, and that your existing client base can be quite helpful for, because they'll know what other lines of product they might be interested in and willing to pay for is the big one. They also theoretically could be helpful in having you identify new products that could help you attract new customers as well. Simply put, if you think about it, if you round out your product offering and you have a deeper bench of options to provide to a prospect, that can certainly help you attract new customers. So they're a sounding board for ideas. That's basically one of the big things you can use them for, and truthfully, that's why I can meet with them every 2 weeks, because a lot of what I talk to them about or ask them about are 2 parts of the whole, product ideation process. One is, at the beginning, is this even a good idea? Like, would you ever use it? Is this, in your mind, a top 5 big win for you? But the other part that is never ending, right? Because theoretically, you could have periods of low new ideas. It does happen. Doesn't happen a lot in my world, but yeah, I go a month or so where there aren't a lot of new ideas being thrown at me. But the other part of it is showing them what we're about to build, right? Wireframes, actual mock-ups, prototypes, and bouncing that off them as well. And I think it's that kind of material that ensures that every 2 weeks I'll have something to talk to them about, because we're always building something. They're also about ideation, right? They do have plenty of ideas about how to make the product better. And here's another one that is probably going to maybe a little surprising to the people on this call, because oftentimes people don't view product management as a democracy, and the reality is it's not, and I'm not saying that it is. But what this group can help you do is, at least amongst that audience of X clients, and for me, let's say right now it's typically about 7 to 8, if I want to ask them for their input on, hey, here are 5 really good ideas, but we want to build them in the order in which we'll be releasing them in highest value order. That's something that I've had these groups do, and pretty successfully they've been very willing to sort them for me. Now, I will admit you can't give them a list of 25 things. That's overwhelming, but you certainly can give them anywhere from 5 to 10, and I found that they are willing to participate. So this is another interesting, I'd call it a side effect of having these boards. I'm sure we've all been in this position, but our biggest clients tend to be the most demanding, and their expectations are the highest. And I'm very used to them being so demanding that they don't really think about the whole concept of a roadmap or a backlog, for that matter. They just want what they want. And what I learned very quickly is they play that game simply because if you don't expose to them, A, what that backlog looks like, and that there is a process behind it, that there is reason to the madness, they will likely just say, I just want what I want. By exposing them to an advisory board, it does 2 things. One, it exposes them to process, that there's reason to the madness, and they're a part of it, right? They're a part of a small select group of people that are going to help drive the product. As well, it exposes them to what you're doing. And by making them a part of this process, they're much less likely to just go directly to you, or even above you, which sometimes happens. Like, it's been known to happen that before me, they'll just go directly to the CTO or even the CEO, yell at them about how terrible it was, the product didn't have a feature, and then we'd be afraid of them and just build it for them. And that was not constructive, I can tell you for sure. And that's one of the big reasons I was brought into this particular company, was to help stop that bleeding.
Great. We have a question that just came in from Sarah. I'm going to hand it over to you, Sarah.
Awesome, thanks. I was just wondering, how do you balance feedback from an advisory board that you may not actually implement? So if customers think that you're their direct link to feature requests, and then you don't end up implementing something that they're really excited about, how do you make sure they don't feel like that feedback was ignored?
That's a good question. I found by continually exposing them and at least making them part of the decision making, they're usually pretty okay with that. And I found that they don't necessarily expect that it's just what this group is saying will be the sole input to your decision making when it comes to building them. And I've been honest with them. You got to be honest. I've been honest that there are other factors that will come into our decision making from other groups in our organization. Like, I've been honest that sales. We're a business. We got to stay in business, and we got to attract new customers. That's going to be another very reasonable input that we're going to have to take into account. You're also 8 of 220 clients. We do have other forums and inputs coming in from them through typically our account executives. So those are just 2 examples, and there are others that I don't necessarily expose them to, as we know of, like just overall business strategy and alignment with business strategy, but let's not go there. But I do expose them to those 2 factors, and they're usually pretty understanding of that because they get that it's a business. Are also running a business, and they're usually pretty understanding of that. I've yet run into anyone who's had a problem with that.
Got it. And I know you mentioned that you're mostly from this is an enterprise point of view. I guess do you think the same would apply if for consumers? You're getting a group of consumers to use it and they're getting really excited, but maybe it's not a tool that they're going to be using every day or that is part of their business.
I think it's higher risk in B2C if I had to guess, simply because you're dealing with individuals a lot of time. And what I mean by individuals is people using a product a lot of times for their own personal use. No one else is involved. There are no other people that are impacted by it. So they're more likely to make their decisions a little more emotionally. And I appreciate that. While in my world, the enterprise tends to be arguably a little bit more logical because this group, the individuals that are on my board are coming and they're theoretically representing a company, which means they're representing anywhere from like 5 to 50 other people that use the product every day. So they tend to be a little bit more rational on their decision making.
Got it.
Excellent. And keep the questions coming in. You can post the questions to theproductmentor.com/live. And back to you, Jordan.
So what are some of the mechanisms you can employ to start an advisory board? So just a reminder, I'm in B2B, so this is easier for me than it is when you're B2C. So that being said, I don't say it's impossible to do it in B2C. If you can get to them, then you shouldn't have a problem, assuming that they're very involved in your product. But for me, they're always, okay, well, not every client, but I've got plenty of clients that are involved and want to participate because it benefits them directly and their company. So where do you start? Like, who would you select? So, start with, clients of course, if you have people in your organization that you already have a relationship with, that you trust and think are, what's the word, smart about your product and where to take it, it's a great place to start. Your account teams and your sales teams. Obviously, it's the client-facing teams that know them the best are great resources to start eliciting ideas on, hey, who should be a member? Now, I caution you, the whole point of this, though, is it's not an open invite. I never suggest that you let anybody in because the vast majority of your users will not be visionaries. They will not have great ideas. All they'll want to do is bog you down, and you'll spend 90% of your time talking about, small usability problems with the product because that's that's where their minds are about the product a lot of times. So I'm looking for a different type of role, and we'll get there, in a second. So your executives as well, meaning the executives that are part of your company, they tend to have contact with the executives and big picture thinkers at your clients, and especially at your most important clients. It's just natural for them to have those types of contacts. So next, you got to start inviting people, right? Once you have that list of people that you're going to use, you want to invite them, and you got to make it sound exciting and enticing, and sell it a little bit. And the way I generally sell it is, just a couple of things of you're going to have access to our product pipeline. You're going to be one of the few people on this board. It's not open invite. Make them feel special about it. It is special. Like you're a trusted advisor within our client community. We really want to hear what you have to say, and not just everybody. And that can, believe it or not, work very, very well. Believe it or not, in getting people to want to give you their time. So let's start with the positive. What's gone well in my past in setting these up? Good attendance. I mean, I'm always baffled that people come every 2 weeks for an hour, take it out of their busy day just to spend it talking with me. And as Sarah actually pointed out, I don't always build all the things that they want and talk about and mention and bring up and say that they love for a number of reasons. Oftentimes I will, and I will be honest that you will have to build them something. but I'm also B2B. I've got a legacy product. It's very big, complicated, and nothing, I can tell you right now, nothing happens fast. It's months before a great idea, okay, would hit our product because of just the way we like to operate. Defects are one thing, features are another. Our features are a minimum of pretty much 3 months before they get built. That's another thing I was honest with the board about, okay, and that, look, you're not going to come tell me something and you're going to see it in a week. It's just, I told them that's just not going to happen, but, okay, give me time, and yes, I will be building, okay, many of the things we talk about. Definitely ideas were flowing. For as much as I say ideas were flowing, I will admit this much, though. For some reason, in the company I'm in now, one thing that's a little different than the two I stood up in the past is I actually have to call people into the conversation. They'll actually stay quiet unless I call them by name. As soon as I call them by name, I mean, they're nonstop. They will talk. They'll tell me exactly how they feel. They're very forthcoming. That's just an interesting dynamic in this group. While in previous lives, it was more free-flowing in that one person would talk, okay, and the natural dynamic is then the group would wait for them to stop, and then another person would contribute, and it was more organic in terms of the conversation happening without me needing to bring them into the conversation. So that's just another thing, that definitely went well. But the point is, I was getting information, and they were very willing to help with the prioritization. When I first started doing these, I was a little afraid that if I gave them a list and said, hey, order them, that they would reluctantly participate, not in the sense that they didn't want to do this, but that they almost their brain wouldn't work that way, and that they just say, oh, they're all great, I want them all. I just want them all, which would be completely not helpful to me, or anyone for that matter. What I found is that almost every single member I've ever done this with has been very willing to put them in order, top to bottom. Here's my first, second, third, fourth, so on and so forth. I've even gotten some of them when I needed it at times to go to a much more granular version of this prioritization, which was, I said to them, instead of just going top to bottom, I wanted it weighted a little bit so I could tell if like the number one idea was immensely more important to them than, let's say, the second, by saying, if you had $100 to spend on these 7 things, how would you spend it? And that's a way of getting them to think more about weighting. And I've even gotten them to do that. Now, I will admit I don't do that often. I only do that when I have that fear that weighting is relevant, where one of these ideas is going to be like grossly more important than some of the others, or that it could be even that like the top 3 are definitely more interesting than the next 4, so much so that maybe the next 4 aren't actually worth building, maybe, that there's so little love for it, but that doesn't happen a lot. I'm usually never at a loss for good ideas, so I don't often have to do this. It's just a matter of ordering them. And one of the beauties of it was a newfound democracy. And what I mean by that is, remember earlier I was talking to you about we had a lot of big clients that would just get frustrated and say, your product stinks without this feature, and go build it right now, okay? You have to do it, okay? You just have to. By bringing these same clients into a virtual room together and having them talk together, that almost came to a screeching halt for 2 reasons. One, exposing them to the process again, right? Like I said earlier, they understood, okay, that we do things in a logical way, and that we no longer were just listening to big, loud clients scream and respond to that. It wasn't effective, and I did explain to them, okay, those big clients, that this board is being stood up so I can do my best to not just deliver for you like one really important thing that you want per year, but try to get you 3 or 4 that will really benefit you, maybe not being your absolute favorite. You're not your number 1, but it's almost like saying, what would you rather have, your number 1 or your second, third, and fourth? And it was pretty clear to me that what they preferred was the intelligence around, yeah, I think I'd rather have 2, 3, and 4 that are all good to me rather than just 1, and then the next couple of things that come out because other big clients ask for them, I have no interest in that. Also, so you can imagine human nature, And this has just been my experience. I can imagine this going with different people, but I've now done this 3 times. I probably had 30 to 35 different people, okay, come in and out of these boards. No one yet has been what's the word, aggressive or arrogant about their approach that they would ever say anything like, my idea is more important than anybody else's. I just want what I want. Okay, I'm a big client. I don't care. They don't do that. They just don't want to be the jerk in the room, okay, who does that for some obvious reasons, and also they begin to build a relationship with the other board members. And if you like them, you're not going to be a jerk to them. You're not going to say to them, I just want what I want, and I don't care about the rest of you. So it was definitely helpful in bringing that risk of one big client freaking out and saying you have to build this, reduced it greatly. Covered this, right? Our aggressive clients respected the democracy. Now here's another thing I discovered. This is the part of the topic, right? And I just was most of the rest. What I just went through was a fair amount of background of what these boards are, what goes well. There are 2 types of people that were coming, right? Users and thought leaders, and it might be pretty obvious the difference between the 2, but it wasn't as obvious to me as I expected it to be. So users are the ones that are in the product, okay, that in my world are like managing the workflow. They are just constantly in it, hands deep, but they're moving, okay, the work from one step to another to another. So right now I'm in basically a very sort of complex work order management system is like a very simple way of looking at my product. They're the ones that are in it every day. They're the ones moving these work orders through, overseeing them, looking for problem work orders to get them out of a stalled state and keep the process moving. Now, they had some value. They were bringing ideas to the table, for sure. And what were they talking about? They wanted easier. They wanted easier to use the product because that's what makes their job easy, right? Better, happier, okay? Which isn't a problem. That's not a bad thing. We all want our products to be easier, but in my world, that's not always my primary objective, believe it or not. I can't spend my entire set of resources that I have just making the product easier. I have to be creating new features that add new capabilities that address new parts of the workflow that we don't address today. And that's the part that with the users I was missing. They couldn't get out of their own heads and their own siloed job description to help me think outside of the current product and what's not great about the current product, and most of it was usability. And they generated a ton of ideas. Like you're going to get a never-ending list of ways to make your product better. We all know that. That doesn't matter if you're B2B, B2C, or business to alien. It doesn't, obviously does not matter. So the list was great, and the feedback was great, and it was a great way to start, and I was getting a lot of ideas. But they weren't necessarily game changers. So what I also realized is that it was a different type of person on my board as well, thought leaders. And they're about, in my world right now, they're thinking about a bigger picture issue, which is across the organization, across my entire team, how do I help manage spend? And by manage spend wisely or spend less on the same quality of service, as well as, since I just mentioned it, managing the quality of service. So the quality of service meaning the contractors that are participating in this process, are they going up in terms of quality, or are they going down? And tracking that and knowing which of the 2 is it, up or down. Because for obvious reasons, they want to see spend going down, quality going up. And the other thing is, thought leaders definitely want game changers. Because they're not in the product all day long. They don't know it well enough to even give me usability feedback. They're thinking bigger picture. They're thinking about the things I said earlier, capabilities that are new, or really like interesting ways to use our data to help better manage their future from the perspectives I already mentioned, spend and quality of service. But the truth is, let's be fair. Okay, there are only so many game changers that people are going to come up with. If everyone came up with game changers, everyone would be a genius, and the world would be a much better place, and all software products would be great and bordering on perfect. But no, most people don't think at this level. It's a challenge to take a product and take it to the next level. So the result was my board evolved, and unfortunately, I will admit, not necessarily for the better, and I'll get there in a second. As I already mentioned, a lot of the ideas coming out from this group was usability and enhancements. At least the majority of them were that. Why? Because there are so many more of them. I already mentioned, game changers are hard to find. So volume-wise, we're spending a lot of time on these kinds of things, mostly usability, minor enhancements. Now, for the people on my team, my product managers, this wasn't a terrible thing. It was definitely helping them find ways to improve the product. So I'm not saying that we weren't getting value out of it. We were. It was just value in a particular arena of usability. But what I wanted, heading up product, and as you can imagine, as the head of product, there is a certain pressures on me to come up with new products to increase revenue, new products that'll attract new customers, as well as retention, all of it. Like, I'm more expected to come up with the game changers, and so are the thought leaders. The thought leaders were definitely wanting to talk about game changers, ideating about them, challenging almost each other about their own ideas about what a game changer could be, what new idea they had, and then asking each other, like honestly, they were really open about the idea that their concept that their idea may not be amazing, and they wanted to bounce their ideas off of other members on the board, and this was getting drowned out by the fact that a lot of the ideas being discussed were enhancements. So what happened was I started to lose my thought leaders. It's true. They stopped coming. They just weren't getting enough airtime about the things that they wanted to talk about. And that was unfortunate, because I'd argue, for me personally, and I think for the benefit of my organization, it's them who I wanted to spend more time with. I'll be honest. At least I did. So this was a problem. So what was the lesson? Excuse me for a second. First, boards are a win, no matter what. Okay, they may not be perfect. They may not get you all the information that you want or the type of information you want, but they're a win. Second, and you might have figured this out already, there are two types of people you're going to get on your boards: users and thought leaders. And this is something to address and to think about. Now, and the question is, I'll get to the how in a second and what I did. Again, users want the product to be easy. Thought leaders want the product to be more valuable. And so did I. As I mentioned, usability was drowning out the game changers. So
we had a question that just came in from Ian. So I'm going to hand it over to Ian to ask his question.
Absolutely.
Hey, Jeremy. So I was just curious, and I came in a little bit late, so apologies, but I was trying to understand the engagement platform for the advisory board. I think you may have discussed this briefly, but was it just a phone call? Like, what was the work done outside of that hour of meeting? Were you doing other activities, conducting surveys, creating materials specifically for them? I just wanted to get a sense of that for context.
They were phone calls, 90% of the time. I would bring them together in person at our user groups the day after the user group. I had asked them to hang around, which wasn't hard because most of them were hanging around anyway. Then we'd do it in person twice a year. But the majority of this conversation was a teleconference, 1 hour every 2 weeks. As far as preparation or what activities were going on outside of this meeting, on their part, nothing other than emails. I might ask them. For anything that I thought was very discreet in terms of the answer, instead of spending precious time on the phone call, I would email them and say, hey guys, do you think this should be A or B? What do you think? Would be emails, but I didn't do that a lot. simply because I didn't want to take up any more of their time than I had to, other than 1 hour every 2 weeks. I just felt greedy asking for more of their time. So on their side, nothing. On my side, I don't prep a ton for them, believe it or not. What I do is, obviously, I have a running list of things I want to talk to them about. It's almost like my backlog of topics. I do order them in priority order for what I think is going to be most interesting. It's almost like, in a weird way, what I'm doing is I'm creating the backlog of ideas to talk about, and it's possible that we'll never get to. There's things that are still on my list that a year and a half in, we haven't spoken about. It's still in there from a year ago, and that's normal, right? Because in my mind, it's just not as relevant to talk about at all. So I'm doing that behind the scenes, keeping all that list of topics. And other than that, I will email out probably the top 4 I want to talk about prior to the meeting. I thought that was helpful, not just because it's like the right thing to do, but it did have a functional advantage of it enabled them to potentially ask around their organization what other people thought. Right? They may be like the smartest in their organization, but they're not the only one. That was one. The other is also they've been known to bring other people in their organization to the meeting. Like, so if it's a decision or an issue that has to do with invoicing, they may want to bring in someone from their purchasing group, as an example, so they can I can get direct access to the person that really deals with this stuff on their side. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, highlights the enterprise context where you really have a lot of representatives engaged. Okay, cool.
Great. So keep the questions coming in at theproductmentor.com/live. Back to you, Jordan.
So what do I recommend in terms of how you can help mediate some of these issues? Simple. Segment your advisory board into 2 groups. Now, this is going to be more time on you, but this is my recommendation because of the reasons I already went through. So let me stay on that slide. The thought leaders want to talk about much bigger picture stuff that the users will not even have never thought about, may not even have a lot of input about. It's just, right? Like, let them get their thoughts out in a forum in which they have like-minded people with them. And the users, same reason, usability type things, that's what they want to talk about. So think of it this way. What you're doing is you're segmenting the topics and bringing to the table the people that are most interested in them, right? Very logical, very straightforward. But I had to learn this the hard way. And I'm here to help you guys not learn the hard way, that if you do this, you may want to even from the beginning consider doing this. Now, the funny part is, the reality is, you probably won't be able to do this in the beginning because you won't know who they are. That's the trick. So you're going to go out, because here's the real process. You're going to go to sales and AEs and your executives and say, I want the thought leaders, the smartest, the best, the brightest, our most engaged clients that know what they're doing, and they're visionaries, and they're going to help us launch this product into 2025, and we're going to make $1 billion. And then they're going to give you a list of people. And no matter what, some of them will not be those people. In fact, a majority will not be those people. You will not know in advance who they are. Neither will the people you're asking for either. They don't realize a lot of times that these people can't think at that level. Okay, so you're probably going to have to start with one, and then over time, figure out a clever way to segment it without insulting anybody, right? So what I did that wasn't so hard, I didn't need to insult anybody, was I had that attrition, right? The thought leaders basically disappeared on me and stopped coming, okay? And nobody really thought anything of it. They just figured they were busy. The other advisory board members were like, oh. So I just called them and invited them to a very different meeting. I had to resell them on the whole idea that, look, I know what happened. You guys wanted to talk about game changers. It didn't happen. Okay, that's what this is. This is the game changer, okay, type conversation. It's going to be smaller. It's only going to be you. And I even said, so-and-so, this person, and this person, who I know was talking about game changers as well, like 5 of you, that's it. Okay, so please come back to the table. And they did. And it's been great. and then I just let the other board, the original board, just run its course.
So we have a question from Sarah. I'll hand it over to her to ask.
Yep.
Sarah, go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, sorry. Issue with the mute. Yeah, so I guess my question was, how do you keep the board membership fresh if that is actually important? You know, to make sure that you eventually have new voices and it's not just, you know, the same group over and over time.
That's a good question, and interestingly, I'm going to give you probably a somewhat surprising answer. Not important to me. I don't feel the need to cycle people in and out, mostly because the only time I think I'd feel really compelled to do that is if we signed on, let's say, a new, very influential client that I'd feel compelled to bring them in. But that hasn't happened. So, and I have invited new people in for two reasons, I'll admit. One is I realized, and you know, this is a natural side effect of when you start asking your peers, hey, recommend clients, those that are really smart. It's going to be naturally your largest, most engaged key clients, important, usually highest dollar value. Is this going to be the natural place their minds go? Because in enterprise, that's who are usually the most vocal, to be honest. So what I realized, though, is I didn't have all the segments of my product represented because of it. It was the larger scale clients, the most sophisticated clients. So what I did is, as some of those started stopped attending for whatever reason, or the overall average attendance started to drop a little bit lower than I felt I wanted, because I will tell you, you almost can't run these meetings very effectively with much more than like 8 or 9 people, because it's only an hour, and how much airtime is each person going to get? And if they don't get some airtime, like if they don't feel like it's enough, they stop coming. So the whole thing could fall apart if you don't limit the number of people that come. Like I've tried to run these with like 12, 13, and it is hard to keep them engaged that way. Anyhow, so as I noticed the membership started dropping into like the 6 range, I invited new people, but what I did is I especially focused on the smaller scale clients, those that were way smaller in terms of number of locations, scale of organization, basically is what that means. So that helped me to get some fresh blood in every now and again, I did, but it wasn't for the reason that you thought, which was, oh, I want to get new perspectives, just because I was getting like enough interesting and exciting ideas out of the group I had. I don't think what you're saying is necessarily bad, other than the one thing you want to be keep in mind is you're going to get more, juice out of the orange by leaving the membership somewhat stable, because they build a relationship with each other, they get comfortable with each other, they're more open, honest, willing to tell someone else on the board that they're like, oh, your idea actually isn't one of my favorite, or even I would not use that. Oh, or even I think that's actually a bad idea. I would recommend, instead of asking for the software to be different, I think your process may be flawed. I've had that happen, and that's like fantastic when that happens, because that's huge learning for them. That's like one SME talking to another saying, I can teach you how to like operate better. And that won't happen unless they're comfortable with each other. So if you constantly are rotating the board too much, you'll lose that.
Great, and I'm going to go to Ian for the next question.
Yeah, and I think you started to answer my question a little bit, so I'll ask it a little bit differently. But so basically, once you segment it, you have the thought leader group, and you have the people who are more like users. Did they notice that you sort of started to scale that back? I don't know if you actually like met less frequently. Did they know about the existence of the other group?
That's a good question.
Is that awkward?
No, because they don't. I did not tell them that there was a secondary group for exactly that reason. I thought that would be offensive, right? Like, oh, we have another group with smarter people than you, would not fly very well. So no, they have no idea. That's also a smaller group, so it's easier to contain. You know what I found you'd think would be very hard, and I don't know how we've done a good job of avoiding this, is one of the real challenges, even with the user-based group, is making sure your other clients don't find out about that, because they're going to ask to be on it. And if they're a dodo, you're going to want to say no. So you don't want it to get out that this exists. It's it's designed to be invite only, secret. Like it's a secret to other clients, and we've done a fairly good job. And I when I stood this up, I was very super clear with everybody, every account executive, every sales guy. This is not open to anybody. Okay, it's invite only. It's up to me who I'm going to invite. I just want your 2 cents. And by the way, if you haven't, if a client ever comes up that you meet that's new or whatever that you think is great, just let me know. I'm happy to consider new membership, but they are not to mention it, okay? Because some clients are savvy and they've been with other organizations or have other vendors that do this and have asked, oh, do you have an advisory board? If you do, I'd love to be on it. And even then, the account reps are smart enough to say, oh, let me look into that, and just leave it at that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff.
Great. Cool.
Great. So yeah, keep the questions coming in for everyone else at theproductmentor.com/live. And back to you, Jordan.
Okay, so back to we were talking about with some recommendations. So now that you have 2 boards, you want to continue to meet with the user side of it frequently. You can meet with those people every 2 weeks. That's what I'm still doing, right? Because I'm showing them, screenshots, of things we're building. What do you think? Is this going to work for you? No problem. Like, there's plenty of material. I can tell you I've been doing this for a year and a half, every 2 weeks, and believe it or not, don't think I've ever canceled the meeting because I didn't have something to talk to them about. I cannot remember doing that. Nope, not that I remember. So I've not run out of material. On top of which, these are folks that, all you got to do is have a few topics, and they're happy to talk. They will, as long as you keep bringing some topics to the table, and that's never been a problem for me. Now, when it comes to the thought leaders version of this, definitely less frequently, simply because they're not coming up with game changers every 2 weeks. Neither are you. It's just a totally different type of idea. It's a new product idea. It's a totally different module, or the idea of like completely revamping an entire feature because it's just like almost like fundamentally broken, right? These things are not happening every 2 weeks. So what I did at first was I did monthly, and then I changed it actually to every 2. Just because actually it turned out that every 2 was a better cadence to make sure that what was being talked about excited them and were actual game changers. And it wasn't like, I felt in the beginning of doing it monthly, I was forcing a couple of ideas in that I could tell they looked at and they were like, interesting. I wouldn't complain if you built it, but it's not on my top 5 list of game changers. So I went to every 2. And why? It'll keep them engaged, right? These are also, here's something else that I noticed that probably could also be obvious. Thought leaders tend to also be have a higher level role within their organization than the users, right? I mean, that's probably pretty obvious why. They're busier. They're harder to get to the table, right? So if you don't use their time wisely, they'll just stop coming. So be cognizant of that. Have really cool, interesting things to talk about. And here's another thing. Don't be afraid to cancel a meeting if you don't have it, right? Don't waste their time. Give them the hour back of their life so they can go be productive corporate citizens in their own organization and not spend time with you talking about things that you don't think will excite them. And I'm done.
Awesome. Jordan, this was great. Thank you to our speaker, Jordan Bergtraum, VP Product Management at ServiceChannel, for today's discussion of users versus thought leaders. And as always, the presentation will be posted to our SlideShare channel. And a big thank you from me, Jeremy Horn, the product guy, and to everyone else who joined us today, and the product mentor. And if you're interested in being a product mentor, just like Jordan, to product people of all sorts of people all around the world, all skill levels, all types of products, please visit theproductmentor.com today and sign up. Our next session, session 5, starts on May 1st. So if you want to be a mentor, please go and sign up today. Also, if you're looking to fill a new product job with a great product person, visit our very own free-for-all job board at theproductjobs.com. And with all that said, thank you, everyone, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.